So what can you cut on our table saw? Well, obviously you can cut wood. This is just some standard hardwood that we have in the shop at the moment. Now, wood has a grain structure, seems obvious. When you're using grain structured wood, rip cuts are along the grain and cross cuts are across the grain, and all these things are fine with just standard wood on our saw. The other thing that you'll be cutting, 90% of what our saw gets used for is plywood and similar products like that. Plywood doesn't have a grain structure because each layer of the plywood goes in a different direction. So because of that, we treat it as a non-structured material, and that means that when you're doing cross cuts, it means that you're making a cut parallel to the shortest edge, or rip cuts means that you're making a cut parallel to the longest edge. Another unstructured material that you'll see being cut on our saw is manufactured products like this chipboard with a melamine laminate on top of it. Our saw is particularly good for this material because we have a scoring blade, which means that you won't get as much chip out when you cut this material. Again, because it doesn't have a structure, this is ripping along the long and cross-cutting along the short edge. Another material that's very common on our saw is just your extruded plastic sheets. Very commonly we see people cut these to be put in the laser cutter. This is perfectly fine, use all the same blades, all the same rules apply, just go for it. We also allow you to cut aluminium on our table saw. Now, it has a special rule. We have a special blade that we want you to use for it. The special blade is our high tooth count TCG blade. The reason for that is we don't want you dulling or leaving aluminium bits on all our good, fine wood cutting blades. So as long as you use the right blade, aluminium is perfectly fine to get some, good pieces out of that. So what can't you cut on our saw? You can't cut steel, it's just too hard for the saw, and you can't cut irritants. So irritants are things like fiberglass or carbon fiber or garolite or PCB boards and stuff like that. Anything that's going to leave behind a noxious powder, we don't want you leaving on the saw. Everything else is typically fine. If you have any questions, just ask someone in the shop and they should be able to direct you pretty well.